Good Tavach, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Beis Hashem podcast. I'm Tzvi Arnstein. Very excited to have my co-host Yehuda Levi. We're talking about the Beis Hamikdash and Beis Hashem, of course. Yehuda, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, Good Tavach.
Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov. So I wanted to just say a quick word just to get the Olam into the topic. We just came off of Parshas Bereshis last week, and it feels like such a blur. Everything's happening so fast. Like, it was literally like 7 days ago we said Bereshis, and already saying Lech Lecha on Monday. But so Bereshis Neach Lech Lecha, a connection that goes from the beginning until these first three Parshas. Hashem created the world and put Adam in Gan Eden. The idea was to have Hashem together with people. Like, there's a certain relationship that Hashem wanted to have with his creations. He couldn't have that with animals. Only with a person could he have that relationship. And Adam Rishon botched that, and he got thrown out of Gan Eden. But the idea was that it should continue, and Hashem was now going to have a relationship outside of Gan Eden. It was less of a darga. But then everybody was chayte, the whole Dorn was chayte, and then they had the Mabul, and that sort of like closed humanity out of Hashem's world, and now sort of Hashem shifted to plan B, that Hashem was going to go to visit our world. This is like Noach after the Mabul. But that also failed because they rebelled against Hashem in this past week's parsha. At the end of the parsha, the Dara Flaga, they rebelled against Hashem. So now there's like already a plan C that Hashem still wanted to have a relationship with humanity, and there was no one that was interested until Rabbi came along, and Hashem saw that, he recognizes me and he wants to have this relationship with me. Okay, so let's do it. I don't care who. Somebody's going to do it. It doesn't matter who it is. And Rabbi came along, and Hashem said, okay, so now the next step is going to be to go create a nation state. And in that nation state, the center of the life of that nation state is going to be a place for me to come and rest my presence amongst you. And now I have a relationship with you guys, and from there it'll spread to the entire humanity. So this was the goal of creation, the goal of, in Plan C, creating Am Yisrael, and as a people, Am Yisrael. So we obviously had our own share of botches, for the past 3,500 years until where we are today, and so this is where it starts getting exciting again. And maybe you want to chime in on that, Yehuda, a little bit, where we are now.
Well, of course, but let me just add a little bit to what you were saying, because I think it's beautiful. If you look at the Rambam in Hilchos Beis Havachira in Perek Beis, where he talks about the Makom HaMizbeach, he really brings a lot of what we are learning in these parshiyos to life. Because a lot of people think that the story of the Beis Hamikdash starts with David HaMelech or Shlomo HaMelech, but of course some people will remember that it actually goes back to Akedah Yitzchak. But it really goes back even to Adam Rishon, and as the Rambam writes, that Mesiris Biyad Hakol is a Meser in the hands of everybody. That the Makom that Shlomo HaMelech built the Mizbeach was the same Makom that the Akedah took place. But going back even earlier, it was the place where Noach built the Teva when he came out of the Teva, this week's parsha. And going back even earlier, it was the place where the very first battle between two ideas of Cain and Hevel, of which carbon is the right carbon, is also on this Mizbeach. And even more so, it was the place where Adam Rishon, who after being kicked out of Gan Eden in last week's parsha, he comes out of Gan Eden and he goes right into Habayis. He goes right to Har Moriah. That's where that meeting place, that connection is, where it's literally like some sort of portal, if you will, from Gan Eden to Habayis. And it says, the Rambam says that Uboy Makom she, I don't remember the exact lashon, I don't have it in front of me, but it's the place where Adam brought a carbon after being kicked out of Gan Eden, and it was the place where he was nivra. And it says, Amr Chazal, Adam mimakom kaparasei nivra. A person was created from the very spot where he can receive his kapara, which shows that the whole purpose of the creation was, of course, that we would recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu and have a relationship. But also the very first thing of having a relationship is that when you do have a disagreement, or you end up with where you're not saying eye to eye, and then you end up having a what's the right word? A clash, if you will. That still there's always a place of tshuva, and the place of tshuva is this place that was chosen from the very beginning of Bria Sa'ilam. As we know, that Evan Shasiya, the location of the Kodesh HaKadoshim is inside the Evan, is the Evan Shasiya. The Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Aron Abris sat on that very first thing that Hashem created, right? Shemimenu Hushtat Ha'ilam, right? That from it was the whole world was created. The very first thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu created was that Evan Shasiya, and from there the entire amazing, phenomenal universe that we live in. So if we going back from the very original spot of creation is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, and that's the spot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided is where we are supposed to be mamlechim for all time, and the mizbeach that's built there. And when Shlomo Melech went to culminate, Am Yisrael has come into Eretz Yisrael after wandering in the Midbar for 40 years, and they come in with Yeshua and Shaftim, right? And they go through all that tkufa, and they're cultivating land. But now they're coming to the point, and of course, there's a Mishkan in Shiloh, and the Noiv, and wherever it is. And as they get to Yerushalayim, the build up to Yerushalayim, finally the place is chosen. After David HaMelech sees the Malach standing over the Malkum during the Magefa, and he buys the Gur in Aravno, which also can tie back into Parshas Bereshis and Parshas Chaisar. We'll get to it shortly. But he buys Gur in Aravno, and he sets up a Mizbeach there, and the Magefa stops. And then Shlomo Melech builds it, and from this point forward, this is the place of the Hamakim that is referenced so many times in Sefer Devarim, right? That don't think you could bring a carbon any place. Ella b'Hamakim Shevachar. The place that was chosen, that is the place where, as we going through the Seder Adayis, Adam Rishon is created, Cain and Hevel bring their karbanos, Noach after coming out of the teva, he lands in northern Turkey, in Hararat, and instead of building Mizbeach there, he travels all the way to Yerushalayim, all the way to this little mountain, Har Maria. What's special about this place? But there was a Messiah, this is the place where Adam Rishon built his karban, built the Mizbeach to bring a karban, and then Adam Rishon goes, that's the place. They go to the place, and they go to Har Maria, and he's the whole story of a kid. Yitzchak, the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer says that when Yitzchak and Rivka didn't have children, and they came to that spot to daven, and they were answered. And then you have the Maisa with Yaakov Avinu running away from Esav on his way to Charan, and he realizes as he gets to Charan, oy vey, I forgot to daven at the place where my forefathers daven, and he travels all the way back to Yerushalayim, and he gets there and he falls asleep.
Interesting that they knew where it was. They somehow they always knew where it was.
Yeah, clearly.
Ram Avinu, the Medrash says that Vayar Samakam Erachai, right? So it was a cloud or something on top. Like Adam Rishon must have known because Hashem put him there. But let's say Noach, how did Noach know? You just mentioned that Noach went all the way from where he landed in Turkey and went all the way there to Israel. How did he know? Like, it's interesting that the psukim don't say. As someone told me, the Meshech Chachma in this week's parsha says that V'yorach Hashem es reach anichayach. The Gemara in Zvachim says there's no reach anichayach in a bama, only on Habayis. And Meshech Chachma says it must be he went to Habayis, otherwise it would have not been a reich nechayach. But how did he know where to go?
Good question.
Yeah, but you can ask further, like, what happened between then and David HaMelech? It seems that nobody knew, and that the place was chosen all along, and people did know earlier, right? We just said, Adam Rishon, Noach, Avram Avinu, they all knew, and then it was forgotten somehow that David HaMelech had to discover it by the story of the Rabbi Yevusi, right? Is that how it went down?
It's hard to say they had to discover it. I'm assuming they always knew where it was. But remember, when Yeshua entered into Eretz Yisrael, the city was run by the Yevusim, and it was impenetrable. There was this huge wall around the city, and nobody was able to reach it. The fact that David was able to capture, when David started his melucha, his capital was in Hebron, where he lived in the plains of Yehuda, right? For him to come and to capture Yerushalayim, but it specifically captured Yerushalayim because of its place that it wasn't under any Shevet's jurisdiction, right?
He wasn't scared of blowing up the Middle East. You know that claim that oh my gosh, if you're going to capture Habayis, you're going to cause a world war. David HaMelech went straight for that. He went right into it.
It's always interesting. Speaking of the Yaakov Avinu, right? The pasuk is an interesting lashon, right? So the pasuk says that Yaakov Avinu gets to Beisel, and he has kritzis haderech, and the Chazal explained that he ends up in Har Maria, and he falls asleep, Right? He puts
Right.
the rocks around him and he falls asleep.
Right.
And he has the dream of the Sulam Mutzav Artzav V'Reish Megash Shamayim V'nei Malachei Elikim Olim V'Yordim B'Lei. There's the ladder is reaching all the way to Shamayim, and there are malachim that are going up and down. And afterwards he wakes up and it says, and the pasuk says, is it possible that Hashem is at this place and I didn't realize? With great awe and trembling, he proclaimed, how awesome is this place? This is the Beis Hamikdash, and this is the gateway to the heavens. Right? Chazal tell us, the Ibn Ezra says, and it's a famous song that Yeshiva Boys Choir made known to us. As someone who's davens at this particular makom is as if they're playing in front of the Kisei HaKavod, Sheshara Shemayim Shamu, Upesach Pasuach L'Shmaya Tefillah Shenemer V'zeh Shara Shemayim. The doorway is always open to listen to Tefillah, because this is where that portal between the physical world and the spiritual world. There's a reason why all the karbanis and all the people came specifically to this location. There's this place why there's a reason why this is the Makam HaShabachar, the Makam HaNivchar. This is the place, and if you look through all the psukim that talk about the places that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the avodah to be done, it never uses a lashon of the actual location, the physical location. It just calls it Hamakam, the place. Right. It's Yadua. Right. So how they knew, but
it sounds like Yaakov didn't know, right? Like he says.
So that's what I was getting to. Right. That's what I was getting to. Hayitachin, that is it really possible that Yaakov Avinu, the son of Yitzchak Avinu, the one who literally probably made a big, huge
monument, like,
Suda to honor the day that the Akedah took place, right? It was probably Yaakov grew up in a house where the Akedah was talked about, probably ad nauseum. It was just everybody knew about this, and you think for a second he didn't know where it was.
Right.
Is it possibly? And he didn't understand. And now I heard a nice pshat. I don't remember from who, and I apologize to whoever I'm not giving credit to here. But I heard a nice pshat that it's possible that Yaakov Vadai knew where the location was. In fact, he even returned back to daven there. Like, it wasn't that he didn't know. He knew where he was going. He knew that he failed to daven at the makom. He turned back all the way. And he got Kritzis Aderech, only that last little bit of the journey from Beis El to Har Moriah, right? The most of the journey from northern Turkey, where he was heading to Haran, all the way back, he didn't have Kritzis Aderech. It was only that last little bit that he got that he had the Kritzis Aderech. But still, there's in a dema someone who experiences it, and I'll share as an anecdote. People who a lot of people know about what's going on in the Har nowadays, and they see the videos of Tefillah, and they see the videos of Ishtachavoya, and they recognize it, but yet they still say once they themselves experience it that is it possible, like the experience that you personally have? And I just want to circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the first Rashi in the Torah. Rashi asks the question. It's really I think it's a medrash in I think. I forget where the medrash is, but it's Yedua, the first Rashi in the Torah, that he asks, why does it say Bereshis bara Elokim? So Rashi says that the reason why we start off this way is that really the Torah should start with Hachodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodoshim, right? Start with the mitzvahs. That's the purpose of the Torah. Right. But Hashem wanted to start with with Bereshis so that everybody would know that Hashem created the world, and nobody could therefore claim, why did the Yidden get to have Eretz Yisrael? Because Hashem created the world, he can decide who he wants to put there. The very next medrash is a medrash that's quoted by Rashi in Parshas Chayei Sarah, when Avraham Avinu buys the stay Chevron from Ephraim Achiti and the Samach Pela. And the medrash just says that there are 3 places in Eretz Yisrael that were dafka bought with money and not conquered by force. So that similarly, the Ummahs can't say that, you took it by force, it doesn't belong to you. Right. And those are, the first place that is quoted in the Torah is Ephraim, the stay Ephraim, right? Chevron. Right, okay. The second one is Shechem, where Yosef Tzaddik bought. And the third is Garin Ravna, David HaMelech bought the location of Habayis. Interesting. And yet, if you think about it, Hashem has a very unique sense of humor, because the 3 most hotly contested places nowadays are exactly that: Habayis, Chevron, and Shechem.
Interesting.
And yet,
Yeah.
Hashem is obviously has his cheshbonis about why that has to be, and we're here for the ride. But
Right.
I think there's added nekuda that just as our forefathers, myself as similar bottom, Sefer Bereshis is filled with that. Just as our forefathers had to go and make the effort to not to capture by force, but to go in and to buy it up and to populate it, so too we in our own way have to make the effort to do the same. And you see with organizations, wonderful organizations like Ateret Kohanim are going out and buying up these places and populating them. It's not just that they're buying the apartments and leaving them empty, but they're putting good Jewish families to sit and to live and to populate these areas that used to not be populated by the Am HaKadosh. And now, Habayis is no way to buy it. Although, a fun fact is that Tzvi's culture tried convincing Baron Rothschild to buy Habayis from the Ottomans, so that there would be no problem of Le'yala b'chema back in the day when the whole vikuach with the Chassam Sofer and Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and Tzvi's culture was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and he was trying to be mechadish avodah. It's all documented in Jewish Tzvi. But the Maisa nowadays, there's not much that we can do in terms of buying the location. We can't go out and
we already conquered. But what could we do?
But what could we do? The number one thing that we can do is demonstrate that it's important to us. And the way to do that is constant visitation. Going and showcasing, not only visiting, because visit sounds like it's not your place and you shouldn't, and you're just going to visit like you're being a tourist.
Establishing Jewish presence.
Go there and showcasing that davening is chashuv to us there. Hishtach Havaya is important to us there. Davening Beis Hashem with talis and tefillin is something we want.
The Karev Mamish, go for it.
And going on, having access on Fridays and Shabbos, so it's are important to us. Yomim Tovim, all these things. How is it possible that we say, everybody says the Kriyas HaTorah, and we just finished Sukkot, right? Everybody knows all about the Karbanos that took place, and all we hear is this constant reference to Shalish Bim Bashana Yereh Kol Zechurchos Pnei Hashem Lekecha B'Makom Asher Yivchar. And you go on the first day of Yom Tif to Habayis, and even to the Kaisel. And it's not the same as Birchas Kohanim. I get it. People are outside. They're finding they have to come to Birchas Kohanim. They can all come. They can drive. It's Chol HaMoed. But what about the actual Yom Tov itself? The first, where's that Hislavus that we have to be there, to be by the Makom Asher Bachar?
Right. We say in davening. I remember today. I while I was davening, I noticed like the lashon of the tefillah is the Sitayenu B'Gvulenu, something like that. The Sham Nasa, like right away coming there to tell the whole point is the Sham Nasa. Coming Chavisenu to meet him Kesidron, whatever, it's Musaf of Shabbat, Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. If we're saying it, let's do it already. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's also a mind shift. Like, we're so used to Judaism being what we grew up with, which is, Tefillah and Torah. And those are beautiful, incredibly important things.
Right.
But we have to remember that Tefillah is just a stand-in for something more important, which is Karbanos. And we don't have the ability to do Karbanos today, even though halachically, we have a mitzvah d'oraisa to bring Karbanos to Zmanenu.
Right. We do have the ability to do it. Just the government right now is not letting us.
Yeah,
do it.
okay.
Right.
So, but the reason why the government, and this is what I was saying before, the reason why the government is not allowing us to do it is because we haven't demonstrated enough to the government that this is something we want to do.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's an Ober Mishnah. Makriven Karbanos kulan afal b'shein sham bayis boneh.
And this is how we pass in earlier. Right, the same Rambam you quoted in Perek Beis and the whole Beis Hamikdash brings that.
I think we should do, in the future when we do different episodes, we can do an episode that touches on bringing Karbanos Zmanenu and the vast amount of poskim that discussed it and pushed for it and paskin la'alocha, including the Chafetz Chaim and Rabbi Akiva Eiger and the Chassam Sofer, and you can go back all the way. Even the Kaptan mentions the
Rabbi Akiva. More recent from the Chazanish, they say there was no reason. He was before 67, but he said that he had said that there's no reason why there shouldn't be Karban Pesach when as soon as as far as
soon as it became practical.
Yeah, as soon as it became practical, they didn't have control of Habayis at the time, but now they do.
So what we're literally seeing is that the practicality aspect really it depends on us and our attitude towards it. If it's something that we believe is possible to do, and we demonstrate to the political leaders who are running the government, that this is something not only dachuf for us, but urgent for us, but it's something that we can't live without. You bet your bottom dollar that it's going to happen. right?
Right,
Look at
exactly.
the vast amounts of security and everything that goes on by the Kaisel. Why is that? Because the Jewish nation has demonstrated to the political leadership that the Kaisel Rabbi is important to them. And the same is true for Hebron during Parshas Chayei, the hundreds of thousands that go to Hebron on Parshas Chayei, and the same is true for Lahavdil, Miron, on Lag BaOmer, and all these things that happen, right? Because if it's something that's important to us, then it will happen. And if the only reason why it's not happening is because we're not showing that it's important to us. And we can be messiah with the words of the Sfas Emes in Parshas Truma. We can go from all Zaytin, from Litvish to Hasidish to wherever you want, wherever you're going. There's one thing that ties us all together, and that is service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the place that He chose. The Sfas Emes says that when it says in the pasuk Va'asli Mikdash v'shachanti v'tzeicham, so Va'asli Mikdash is a mitzvah l'dayris. Every time it says the word li, it means l'dayris. And says the Sfas Emes, just as it was done during Beis Rishon and Beis Sheni, Beis Hashem, Beis Shlishi, when the Am wants it to happen is when it will happen. And therefore, says Sfas Emes something scary. The truth to the statement called Dar Shalei Nimid Beis Hamikdash Biyam of Kilu Necherav is talking to us. It's not just a statement. It's actually a gnai on us, because if we haven't built the Beis Hamikdash in our generation, it shows that we don't really want it enough. Because if we really wanted it, Hashem would arrange the cards for that it can happen. And we can have another episode going through the whole vikuach of whether Beis Hamikdash will fall from Shemayim or we have a chiyuv to build it. Spoiler alert, we have a chiyuv to build it. The overwhelming majority of Poskim, the overwhelming majority of Poskim, from the Rishonim to the Acharonim to the Sugyas, all go through, but we're welcome to go through that sugya and discuss it more with barichas. But even if the psak was that it has to fall from Shemayim, the way it will fall from Shemayim is if we want it, and we have to believe that we can live a life with it, and we can't be afraid of it. This is what we're put in this world to do. This is what the Am HaNivchar was chosen to do, is not just be a nation full of Torah and Tefillah, which is very important. Don't want Chas v'Shalom to say that this is not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is that. But we also have to remember, the ultimate goal is to have a Beis Hamikdash where everything, the ultimate way of Torah and Tefillah and Avodah, and everything that we do to serve Hashem comes from that place.
Okay, Shekayach Rabbi Yehuda. We should be zeicha v'karev mamish. The Olam, the Tzibur, hopefully will wake up and hear your inspiring words. And v'nachalu, what the lashon pasuk, and people will stream towards Habayis and they'll create that counter pressure. Just to expound on that for a second, there's a tremendous political pressure outside, from the Christians. None of the religions of the world want to see Am Yisrael create that connection with Hashem, because once we do that, they know they're bankrupt. So the Christians is Europe and America. No, status quo, don't change anything. Islam, very, very, constantly saying, God forbid the Jews should do anything in Habayis. They called the name of this war the Al-Aqsa flood, whatever they called it. But we see from our enemies, there's a constant pressure. So the political leadership, Bibi Netanyahu, whoever it is, has a tremendous pressure not to do anything. And obviously, he needs us to make that counter pressure. So Beis Hashem people should get involved and create that counter pressure. And Voltzi and Goyal will have the Beis Hamikdash. Amen.
Amen.